The future is inherently dangerous. The maximum advancement of civilization has been secured by processes that nearly destroyed the societies in which they took place. Alfred North Whitehead. For 14 years, Kathy Hutchison was completely paralyzed after a stroke, unable to move or speak, and only able to communicate through her eye and neck movements. However, her life took a dramatic turn in 2012 when scientists implanted a small chip on her brain's surface and connected it to a computer and robotic arm. With this technology, Kathy can now control the robotic arm with her thoughts, enabling her to learn how to pick up objects and bring them to her mouth. For the first time in many years, she can interact with her environment. When asked about her feelings, Kathy simply said, "Ecstasy." This chip, known as BrainGate, was developed by researchers at Brown University. It's about the size of a small pill and features 96 fine electrodes that detect brain signals. When Kathy thinks about making a movement, the chip sends these signals to a computer that manages the robotic arm. In January 2024, Neuralink achieved a milestone by implanting the first chip into a human brain, with paralyzed Nolan Arbaugh being the recipient. Despite being paralyzed below the neck, Nolan Arbaugh can now control a computer using only his thoughts. He plays online chess and Civilization VI, engages on social media, and is even learning Japanese. He describes the chip as having helped him reconnect with the world. Another notable development this year involves Casey Harrell, who has amyotrophic lateral sclerosis. Thanks to a new speech neuroprosthesis, he has regained the ability to speak. A matrix of electrodes was implanted in his brain, and with the aid of machine learning, Casey can now articulate up to 32 words per minute in his own voice, reconstructed from previous recordings. Someday, in 2052, you'll be telling some kid how it all started, and he'll be bored. This is a quote from Tim Urban, a prominent science journalist. In 2015, Elon Musk invited Urban to discuss his projects. 2 years later, Urban published an extensive article about Neuralink, a company focused on developing a neural interface to treat brain conditions and, eventually, enhance human capabilities. Urban spent several weeks with the Neuralink team. As the agreed-upon time came to an end, he asked them for their predictions for 2052, when their technology might become mainstream. However, the team declined to provide any forecasts, stating that their focus was on achieving concrete results rather than speculating about the future. But I kept asking, gritting my teeth, until they outlined their thoughts regarding the future. I also did most of my far future conversations with Elon and neuroscientist Moran Cerf. Also, I talked to Ramez Nam and asked him 435 questions to get the full picture. Anyway, I recommend reading this article. It is the inspiration for this video, and also the books The Brain by neuroscientist David Eagleman and The Future of the Mind by physicist Michio Kaku, which I will be referring to. The brain-wide interface will provide your brain with the ability to communicate wirelessly with the cloud, with computers, and with the brains of anyone with the same interface. This flow of information between your brain and the outside world will be completely invisible. It will be like the thinking that's going on in your head right now. Yes, this video is about the future of neural interfaces, swarm consciousness, and symbiosis with artificial intelligence. Back in 1963, a Spider-Man comic introduced an unusual character named Otto Gunther Octavius, a scientist who developed a device allowing him to control 4 robotic arms with his thoughts. Each arm could function independently, much like managing multiple tasks at once: driving, drinking coffee, and monitoring the road. Unfortunately, after an accident that damaged his brain, Dr. Octavius became the villain known as Dr. Octopus, using his robotic arms for criminal activities. At the time, the concept of controlling robotic limbs with thought seemed like pure science fiction. Today, it's astonishing how swiftly such fantasies have become reality. Researchers have discovered that the brain can adapt to bodily changes. For instance, when a person loses a limb, the brain area that previously controlled it doesn't become inactive, but instead begins to control other body parts. Consider the case of Laura, who lost her hand. Weeks after her injury, the brain region once responsible for her hand's movements started to manage her shoulder muscles. Scientists investigated this phenomenon by sending weak magnetic pulses through Laura's skull and observing the muscle responses. They found that Laura's brain had reconfigured itself to optimize control over her remaining body parts. This adaptability suggests intriguing possibilities for the future of neural interfaces and their potential to enhance human capabilities. In nature, there are numerous animals with unique and varied body structures, such as anteaters, stargazer moles, sloths, dragonfish, octopuses, and platypuses. Despite their diverse appearances, these creatures share strikingly similar genes. They make use of various body parts, tails, claws, tentacles, whiskers, proboscises, and wings to navigate their environments. For example, mountain goats adeptly scale steep cliffs, owls excel at locating mice in darkness, and frogs catch flies with precision using their tongues. The brain is remarkably versatile and adapts to control whatever body parts it has, whether they are fingers, flippers, or wings. However, if genes are so similar and they can give rise to such diversity in the animal kingdom, why are there no humans with unconventional body parts? The truth is, there are. Occasionally, people are born with unusual features. For instance, some babies are born with small tails. In Shanghai, a boy named Cece was born with 3 arms, 1 normal right arm and 2 fully functional left arms. This illustrates how genetic variations can produce unusual physical traits. These cases, such as an extra arm or a tail, highlight how minor genetic changes can have significant effects on the body. Less noticeable variations are also common, such as differences in arm length, finger length, or toe size. Chimpanzees, our closest relatives, share a high degree of genetic similarity with humans but have different body structures. Their arm muscles are arranged differently, their thighs are turned outward, and their toes are longer. The monkey brain easily learns to climb trees, while the human brain learns to play the piano or shoot an arrow. Matt Stutzman, born without arms, mastered archery using his feet. He positions the arrow on the bowstring with his toes, raises the bow with 1 foot, draws the bowstring, and shoots. Remarkably, Matt has become a world-class archer, setting the record for the longest series of accurate shots. This kind of brain adaptability is also evident in the animal kingdom. For instance, a dog named Faith, born without front legs, learned to walk on her hind legs like a human. Though dogs are typically thought of as 4-legged walkers, Faith demonstrates how the brain can adjust to an unconventional body. Similarly, Sir Blake, a bulldog, has learned to ride a skateboard. He can jump on the board, push off with his paw, and navigate obstacles. The internet also features many skateboarding dogs, and a dog named Sugar has even excelled as a surfer, earning a spot on the International Surfer Dog Walk of Fame. Real honor. Babies learn to speak by making different sounds. They listen to how these sounds sound and compare them with the speech of their parents. Praise from adults helps them understand which sounds are correct. This is how children gradually learn whatever language is spoken around them. In the same way, babies learn to move. When a baby lies in the crib, he is mobile, constantly trying to reach his toes, waving his arms, pulling his hair. This is how he learns how his body works. Later, this experience helps him learn to walk, eat, swim, and jump. Adults can learn new movements too. For example, when a person learns to ride a bicycle, his or her brain adapts to a new way of traveling. Although people are not born with the ability to ride a bicycle, they learn it easily. But there are some unusual bicycles. Destin Sandlin, an engineer, once tried riding a bicycle with handlebars that turned in the opposite direction. Initially, he found it challenging, but after a few weeks of practice, he adapted. His learning process was similar to how children master riding a conventional bicycle, through trial and error. A similar situation occurs when you first drive a car in a country with the opposite side of the traffic. It is difficult at first, but gradually you get used to it. The brain learns by observing the outcomes of actions and gradually adapts. This learning by practicing principle is not unique to humans. For instance, an underwater robot called Starfish, designed to resemble a starfish, learns to move by experimenting with different motions, It records successful movements and uses them, gradually understanding how its body functions. In December 1995, Jean-Dominique Bauby, then at the height of his career as the editor of Elle magazine and a prominent figure in France, suffered a massive stroke that left him in a coma. Upon waking, he found himself completely paralyzed except for his left eyelid. Using this single movement, Bauby learned to communicate by selecting letters that his doctor read aloud. Through this painstaking process, he managed to write a book about his experience as a locked-in person. Published in March 1997, The Diving Bell and the Butterfly became an instant bestseller in Europe. Tragically, just 2 days after its release, Bauby passed away. Jean-Dominique Bauby's story continues to remind us of the importance of health. Bauby was unable to move because his brain could no longer send signals to his muscles. Normally, the brain sends commands through nerves to control muscle movements, but for Bauby, this connection was severed. This challenge inspired scientists to explore the possibility of reading signals directly from the brain, leading to the development of brain-computer interfaces. Similarly, soccer player Matt Nagel, who became paralyzed due to a spinal cord injury, faced a disruption in the connection between his brain and muscles. In 2006, he had a small plate with electrodes implanted in his brain. This neuroprosthesis allowed him to control an artificial arm with his thoughts. When Matt thought about a movement, the device interpreted his brain signals and transmitted them to a computer. 5 years later, scientists developed a more advanced artificial hand, and Jan Schuermann, who was paralyzed, volunteered to test it. After surgery, Jan could control the arm simply by visualizing movements, enabling her to pick up objects almost as effectively as with her natural hand. As Jan said, "If anything, I'd still rather have a brain than hands." Scientists are developing various types of devices to address paralysis. One group is working on exoskeletons, suits designed to mimic the human body. These suits are controlled by small plates with sensors implanted in the brain. When a person thinks of a movement, the suit executes that movement. Another approach involves a system that reads signals directly from the brain's movement area. These signals are sent not to an external suit, but to a device worn on the arm, which stimulates the muscles directly, bypassing the damaged spinal cord. People using this system have been able to move their hands and fingers, pick up objects, manipulate them, and even type on a keyboard just by thinking. But there's a problem. The person can't feel what they're touching. It's like picking up an egg with thick gloves. You could easily crush it or drop it, but scientists have dealt with this as well. In 2016, paralyzed Nathan Copeland had the opportunity to shake hands with US President Barack Obama using a robotic arm controlled by his thoughts. Electrodes implanted in his sensory cortex allowed him to feel the president's grip. Remarkably, the brain starts to recognize the artificial arm as part of its own body over time due to the feedback it receives. For example, when a baby knocks a toy on the crib, he not only moves his hand, but also hears the knock, sees the movement, and feels the impact. This feedback helps the brain learn and adapt. A similar phenomenon occurs in monkeys. When they used a stick to get food, their brain began to perceive this stick as part of the hand. The area of the brain responsible for the hand seemed to stretch to include the stick. Imagine if it was possible to not just replace the damaged arm, but to add a new third arm. It sounds fantastic, but such an experiment has already been done with a monkey. In 2008, a remarkable experiment involved a monkey with 2 healthy hands and an additional metal robotic arm. A chip with electrodes was implanted in the monkey's brain, enabling it to control the robotic arm purely with thought. Initially, the monkey used its real hands to move a cursor on a screen to receive a treat. Over time, an intriguing development occurred. The monkey stopped using its real hands, yet the cursor continued to move. This indicated that the monkey's brain had learned to control the cursor independently of its actual hands. Eventually, the monkey could use the robotic arm to pick up a marshmallow and bring it to its mouth, utilizing a separate brain region specifically for this task, not the one controlling its natural hands. This is reminiscent of Dr. Octopus, who managed to control both his regular arms and his robotic tentacles simultaneously. In another experiment, a monkey in the US controlled a robot in Japan. The monkey walked on a treadmill, and the robot on the other side of the world repeated its movements. The setup was based on transmitting signals from the monkey's brain over the internet to control the robot. Scientists had to meticulously study the monkey's brain activity while walking, understanding how different brain regions coordinated movement. They deciphered these signals and translated them into commands for the robot. Fascinatingly, even when the monkey stopped walking and only thought about it, the robot continued to move, demonstrating the potential of brain-machine interfaces to bridge distances and control devices remotely. It seems that in the not-so-distant future, we will almost inevitably have mind-controlled robots in manufacturing, in underwater environments, or maybe even on the surface of the moon, and we will be able to control them without leaving the comfort of our cozy couch. This technology could revolutionize our approach to exploring dangerous environments like space or the deep ocean. Instead of sending humans into hazardous situations, we could deploy robots and control them remotely. For example, in 2010, the world watched in distress as 5 million barrels of crude oil spilled into the Gulf of Mexico, marking one of the largest environmental disasters in history. For nearly 3 months, engineers struggled to manage the spill. Remote-controlled robotic submersibles were deployed to attempt to fix the leak, but their limited skill and flexibility made their efforts largely ineffective. Had engineers been equipped with underwater robots controlled by brain signals, the situation might have been resolved much more quickly. These robots could have performed intricate tasks with greater precision and adaptability. The question then arises, what happens to your sense of self when you integrate a new body part or a robotic extension? Remarkably, you would likely begin to perceive the robot as an extension of yourself. The artificial arm will become another limb for you. Certainly unusual because of the physical distance separating you. But despite the distance, it still has the right to be considered yours. The only reason is because Mother Nature never tried to create Bluetooth remote limb control. Imagine suddenly losing recognition of your own arm or leg. This unusual condition is known as somatoagnosia, which can occur if there is damage to the right parietal lobe of the brain. Individuals with this disorder may come to believe that the affected limb does not belong to them. Some might think it belongs to a deceased friend or even an animal. Reactions to this alien limb vary. Some people may ignore it, while others may talk about it obsessively or even try to harm it. Scientists believe that somatoagnosia arises when the brain loses control over a body part, leading it to stop perceiving the limb as part of itself. Renowned neuroscientist Oliver Sacks experienced something similar. While hiking in the Norwegian mountains, he was startled by a wild boar. In his panic, he stumbled and injured his quadriceps femoris muscle. The injury rendered him unable to move his leg, and while hospitalized, he became delirious and began to perceive his leg as not belonging to him. He could see it but not feel it. "I didn't know this leg. It was strange, not mine, unfamiliar. I gazed at it, but I didn't recognize it at all. There was no hint of sensitivity, and in general it looked and felt creepy, seemed inexplicably alien to me, like a lifeless moolage pinned to my body." This condition highlights the crucial role that body control plays in our perception of self. When we lose this control, our sense of who we are can shift significantly. Take the shadow hand, for example. This artificial hand is equipped with sensors on each finger's pad that transmit data to a mechanoreceptor glove you wear. This glove is so precise that you can control the shadow hand remotely, no matter where you are. This device represents a way to experiment with different body types, offering a glimpse into virtual reality experiences where you can instantly change your body. Imagine looking into a mirror in a virtual world. You raise your hand and your reflection mirrors the action, but your reflection might not resemble your actual self at all. It could be someone of a different gender, age, or even an entirely different form. Researchers have found that people adapt to new virtual bodies within just a few minutes. You can then walk around in the virtual world feeling like a different person. Some researchers have gone further. They have created virtual bodies with unusual shapes. For example, with a huge arm the size of a crane or with 8 legs like a lobster. Surprisingly, people quickly learn to control even such strange bodies. Here's another example. Suppose you are in virtual reality. You're wearing VR goggles, you're holding controllers. And then you look down, and you see not only your usual hands, but a third one right in the middle of your chest. Scientists from Stanford conducted such an experiment. In it, people learned how to control that extra arm. It took participants just 3 minutes to master the new body part. VR blurs the boundaries. You can have a tail, shrink to the size of a ball, or become as big as a house. Your body can take on any shape, even Dr. Octopus. Paradoxically, changing your virtual body can affect our behavior and thinking. Studies have shown that people who use avatars of older people think more about saving money, and those who see their avatar exercising want to start working out themselves. And here's an example from life. Foundry worker Nigel Auckland lost his arm in an accident. Instead of a conventional prosthesis, he was fitted with a bionic arm that he can feel. Interestingly, this new arm doesn't just replace his lost arm, it gives him new abilities. For example, he can rotate his wrist non-stop like a spinner, and he can feel it. He can feel the endless rotation of his arm. It turns out that Nigel can generate thoughts that we can't. We are entering a bionic age, when humans will be given equipment more powerful and durable than the biological robot body given to us at birth. And when our inquisitive, unknowing descendants begin to study us millions of years from now, we'll probably call our present day the time when humanity first stepped off the slow paths that slow evolution has taken us down and took the future of our bodies into our own hands. In 2013, Dr. Nikolelis, a renowned figure in neural interfaces and neuroplasticity, who holds a position at Duke University and is a member of the French Academy of Sciences, conducted an intriguing experiment with rats. To introduce Nikolelis properly, he is a Doctor of Medicine, Doctor of Philosophy, and a recipient of the Daniel Nobel Prize, known for his groundbreaking work in these fields. In this particular experiment, Nikolelis trained rats to press a lever in response to a red light. He used a specialized device to transmit signals directly to other rats' brains. By connecting the rats' brains through the internet, he was able to send signals from the first group of rats to the second group. Remarkably, the second group of rats pressed the lever even though they did not see the light themselves, accurately responding to the signal from the first group 70% of the time. This pioneering work was an initial step towards creating a brain net or mind-melding system. In the same year, the University of Washington conducted a similar experiment involving humans. In this case, a scientist wearing an electroencephalography helmet merely thought about moving his hand, and the hand of another scientist, located elsewhere, moved in response. This wasn't a mere coincidence. The signal was transmitted over the internet from the first scientist's brain to the second scientist's helmet, which then triggered the movement. This phenomenon is reminiscent of alien hand syndrome, where one hand or body part acts independently, often due to a lack of communication between the brain's hemispheres. This syndrome might cause one hand to button a jacket while the other hand simultaneously unbuttons it, as if controlled externally. I delve into this topic in more detail in my video about consciousness. These phenomena are fundamentally distinct. Alien hand syndrome involves a disruption in communication between the two hemispheres of the brain, leading to conflicting behaviors. On the other hand, Nikolelis' experiment represents a novel form of interaction between people, showcasing the potential for sharing experiences directly. Nikolelis envisions a future where you could transmit your sensations, such as those from dancing or skydiving, straight to your friends. Imagine watching a soccer match and feeling as if you're inside Messi's body. You'd experience his excitement, the sensation of the grass beneath your feet, and the wind against your face as if you were on the pitch yourself. This level of immersion would transform how we engage with sports and other activities. Envision experiencing weightlessness without the risks or extensive preparation. By connecting to the brain of an astronaut in space, you could feel their experiences firsthand. You might be fascinated by how water behaves in zero gravity while washing your hair, or marvel at an endlessly spinning spinner. This isn't virtual reality. It's a direct, real-time sensory experience from another person's perspective. Scientists anticipate that in the future, we could communicate through social media using only our thoughts, bypassing traditional keyboards and touchscreens. Instead of typing messages, we might exchange thoughts and emotions directly. It is possible that the next generations of humans will actually master the skills, technology, and ethics necessary to create a functioning brainnet, a medium through which billions of human beings will be able to mutually agree to make direct contact with others solely by mental effort. What this colossus of collective consciousness will look like, feel like, do, neither I nor anyone else can currently imagine or describe. Physicist Michio Kaku believes that BrainNet can change the way civilization develops. The history of mankind is the history of the development of communication. At first, people communicated through gestures and shouting. Then came speech, and we began to live in villages and cities. With writing came science and art. Each step brought us closer to each other and changed the way we lived. We went from nomadic tribes to a global society, and each time, a new way of communicating accelerated these changes. Today, the internet makes possible the emergence of an all-planetary civilization that will connect the peoples of the world. The next giant step could be a planetary network, a brainnet, where the full range of feelings, emotions, memories, and thoughts can be shared globally. Every technology has its dark side. Imagine a future where computers understand your brain. But what happens to computers? Yeah, they get hacked. But instead of accessing your photos or bank details, hackers could delve into your thoughts, memories, and emotions, everything that defines you. Now, picture someone not only reading your thoughts but altering them. They could make you think and feel whatever they want, while you'd remain unaware of the manipulation, convinced you're making your own decisions. If this technology fell into the wrong hands, such as terrorists or dictators, they could control millions without their knowledge. An entire army of unwitting puppets. And consider this, computers can crash, but you can replace them. What if the interface in your head fails? You can't just get a new brain. Science has given us remarkable advances, drugs, smartphones, but also nuclear bombs. Biologists have developed vaccines, but also biological weapons. Cars have made life easier, yet they cause over 1 million deaths annually. It sounds grim, but let me ask you this. Are you prepared to forgo all these advancements, to return to an era filled with horsemanure on the streets, without the internet, airplanes, computers, or cars? Probably not. Neither am I. Yes, new technology is always risky and can cause harm, but it often brings far more benefit. Over the past 2 centuries, the world has transformed dramatically. Life expectancy has doubled, child survival rates have surged, we've grown taller, extreme poverty has decreased, literacy rates have risen, and natural disasters are less deadly. There will always be challenges. Bad actors will find new ways to cause harm, while others will strive to protect. But the will of the people remains the same. The people of the future will probably never want to return to our time. 2024. Unless disaster strikes, our culture is rich with stories of disaster and dystopia. In the Matrix trilogy, people are unknowingly trapped in a simulated reality. The TV series Altered Carbon explores a future where consciousness can be transferred to new bodies, creating a society rife with inequality. In Inception, technology enables access to and manipulation of others' dreams. William Gibson's novel Neuromancer features hackers who can directly interface with other people's brains. Transcendence portrays a scenario where artificial intelligence, based on human consciousness, spirals out of control. In the movie Her, an artificial intelligence goes out of control. In the movie Ex Machina, artificial intelligence is out of control. What if a machine uprising begins within our own minds? As neural interfaces potentially replace smartphones and become more pervasive, how will we safeguard ourselves against the dangers of advanced AI? When AI can read our thoughts, who will remain in control. Often, a breakthrough in a field is just on the brink of happening, but something crucial is missing, like a fire ready to ignite but lacking a spark. Elon Musk aims to be that spark, creating the catalysts necessary for industry-wide advancements. When Tim Urban asked Musk why he focuses on engineering rather than science, Musk explained that engineering is the key to unlocking progress. Science generates ideas, but without the technology to implement them, these ideas remain theoretical. Historically, major breakthroughs have been technological. The steam engine fueled the Industrial Revolution. Electricity sparked the telecommunications revolution. And GPS revolutionized navigation and cartography. To understand why Elon Musk founded Neuralink, we need to grasp the match he is trying to create. Neuralink's mission is to develop a cutting-edge neural interface that will link the human brain with the external world. This concept echoes the neural lace idea from Ian Banks, the Culture series, a seamless, invisible interface that integrates with the entire brain. We might be on the brink of a revolutionary change, but there are significant hurdles to overcome first. One major obstacle is the public sphere. Surveys reveal that Americans are more apprehensive about neurochips than they are about gene editing. However, Neuralink co-founder Flip Saves argues that this fear is misplaced. He points out that we already use brain implants to treat conditions like Parkinson's disease and to restore vision and hearing. These technologies, which once seemed daunting, have become commonplace. Just as laser eye surgery, pacemakers, and organ transplants were once feared but are now accepted, neurochips might follow a similar path. Another challenge is our limited understanding of the brain. We still have much to learn about its complexities. Yet, Flip believes this doesn't have to be a barrier. He compares it to the chess supercomputer Deep Blue, which, despite not understanding chess, has taught top players new strategies. Similarly, we might teach neurons to interact with computers, allowing machine learning to bridge the gap and enhance our understanding of the brain. So perhaps the main obstacle is not people's fear or ignorance of the brain, but technical difficulties, and the best engineers in the world are already working on them. The first and main difficulty is limited bandwidth. Currently, we can read signals from only about 1,000 neurons at a time, which is insufficient for complex tasks. Neuralink aims to advance this by developing technology that can read signals from 1 million neurons simultaneously. Reaching the milestone of 100,000 neurons would enable the creation of many valuable applications. The world's top engineers are actively working to overcome these technical challenges. This situation is similar to the early days of computing. Initially, transistors were large and challenging to increase in number. However, the invention of integrated circuits in 1959 revolutionized this, enabling a dramatic increase in the number of transistors on a chip and leading to Moore's law. In the field of neurointerface, a similar breakthrough has yet to occur. With a current growth rate of 500 neurons every year and a half, we won't reach 1 million neurons until the 6th millennium. However, if the number of neurons doubled every year and a half, we'd hit the million mark by 2037. Reality, by the way, is closer to the second option. Ian Stevenson and Conrad-Cording studied the maximum number of simultaneously read neurons in animals over the last 50 years. Their study, known as Stevenson's law, showed that this number doubles about every 7 years. If this trend continues, we'll be able to record 1 million neurons by the end of this century and capture every neuron in the brain by 2225. For a breakthrough in neurointerface, it's not enough to incrementally increase the number of recorded neurons. We need to fundamentally change the technology to enable exponential growth, akin to Moore's law. Additionally, implanting the device remains a challenge. Currently, neurointerface requires intricate brain surgery. For instance, the advanced Neuralink N1 implant involves a small scalp incision and a tiny hole in the skull. Robot with micron-level precision. The R1 then inserts threads thinner than a human hair into the brain tissue. The threads of the implant are flexible, allowing them to move with the brain without causing damage. The main component of the implant, which includes all the electronics and the battery, is placed under the scalp and connected to these implanted threads. Despite its promise, the technology remains expensive, insufficiently tested, and therefore risky. The Neuralink team aims to simplify and automate the neurointerface installation process, making it as straightforward as laser eye surgery. They believe that if these challenges are addressed, neurointerfaces could become as commonplace in the future as smartphones are today. Engineers are exploring new methods to link our brains to computers without requiring complex surgeries. In his TEDx talk, researcher Hong Yeo showed electrodes in the form of a temporary tattoo on the skin. Scientists think this method can be applied to the brain as well. Another team is working on a neural mesh composed of nanoparticles that could be injected into the brain with a syringe. DARPA is developing tiny neural implants that could potentially replace pharmaceuticals. DJ Seo, a Neuralink co-founder, is creating neural dust, tiny silicon sensors as thin as a hair that are injected into the brain's cortex and communicate with external devices via ultrasound. Additionally, some researchers are investigating groundbreaking ideas like optogenetics and the use of carbon nanotubes. These examples illustrate how interdisciplinary collaboration can lead to innovative solutions. Different small teams around the world are looking for a breakthrough that won't match. If it happens, things will change fast. Someday in 2052, you'll be telling some kid about how it all started, and he'll be bored. So why did Elon found Neuralink? Granted, the benefits of neural interfaces may be great, but doesn't the risk of a disaster like artificial intelligence controlling humans outweigh it? Elon has an answer to that question. You don't have to be an expert to see where this is going. The magic has made its way from industrial facilities into our homes and hands, and will soon be on our heads. Then it will take another step. The magic will be transferred to our brains. This will happen through a whole brain interface that I call the Magic Hat, a neurocomputer interface so complete, so sleek, so biocompatible, and high bandwidth that it will become part of your cortex and limbic system. The whole brain interface will provide your brain with the ability to communicate wirelessly with the cloud, with computers, and with the brains of anyone with the same interface. This flow of information between your brain and the outside world will be completely invisible. It will be similar to the thinking that's going on in your head right now. Elon Musk calls such a brain-wide interface the tertiary digital layer of the brain. In his view, we already have two layers: the limbic system, responsible for emotions, and the cortex, responsible for rationality. The neurointerface would be a third layer, complementing the two existing ones. If this comparison doesn't appeal to you, Elon has something to tell you. We already have a tertiary digital layer. It's the computer, or the phone, or other gimmicks. You can ask Google a question and instantly get an answer. You can access any book or music. You can do incredible calculations with spreadsheets. One person with a laptop can do a lot more than a bunch of people with calculators. What people can't realize now is that they are already cyborgs. You are not the same creature you were 20 or even 10 years ago. You are already a different creature. Look, people even do surveys on how long can you go without your phone. And if you're not more than 20 years old, even one day is enough. I think people have kind of merged with their phones, laptops, and other devices. It's difficult to imagine because we don't perceive ourselves as cyborgs. We simply use devices to meet our needs. However, when we use a phone or computer, we're essentially creating a digital version of ourselves that interacts with the world through a screen and keyboard. This digital self is as real as our vocal self, with the only difference being the tools we use for communication, our vocal cords versus a touchscreen. Elon Musk argues that smartphones are extensions of ourselves, like digital limbs. However, the current connection between our brains and the digital world is quite slow, comparable to trying to drill through wood with our finger. Neurointerfaces, or as Tim Urban puts it, the Magic Hat, are designed to enhance this connection. Such an interface could revolutionize not only our interaction with computers, but also with each other. Instead of conveying information through speech or text, we could exchange thoughts directly. Musk frequently emphasizes the importance of bandwidth. To illustrate, if information is a milkshake, bandwidth is the width of the straw through which we drink it. Computers process information quickly, like drinking through a wide tube. Our brains are fast as well, but communicating through voice is like using a narrow straw, and typing messages is akin to trying to drink a milkshake through a needle syringe. Neuroscientist Morin Cerf has examined the information transmission capabilities of different parts of our nervous system. His findings reveal that our brains process information much faster than we can communicate through words or text. Essentially, there is a significant bandwidth gap between our thinking and our communication. The Neuralink team aims to bridge this gap, enabling communication at the speed of thought, like upgrading from a straw to a pipe. This improvement is not just about speed, but also about the accuracy of information transfer. When we speak or write, our brains compress complex ideas into simple words, causing a loss of nuance. A neurointerface could allow us to convey thoughts without losing these details. Language itself is inherently limited. Words are only a rough approximation of our thoughts and feelings. For instance, when describing a horror movie, we might use generic terms like scary or creepy, even though our experiences are much more nuanced. People try to overcome these limitations by creating videos and music. But even these mediums can't fully capture the richness of our inner world. Elon Musk, on Lex Fridman's podcast, illustrated this with the concept of memes, not the humorous internet images, but the idea of memes as compact representations of complex concepts. For example, the evolution meme conveys a vast amount of information in a single word, offering a compression rate where one word communicates what would typically require, say, 10 words. There's a challenge with this super compression. It only works if both parties are on topic. If the terms natural selection or variability are unfamiliar to someone, the concept of evolution as a meme loses its meaning, resulting in data loss rather than compression. Human communication has historically evolved through indirect means, speech and writing, for about 100,000 years. However, in the last 150 years, we've rapidly developed new communication methods. These changes may be steering us towards a new era of communication. In this potential new era, we might not need physical gadgets at all. Our brains could become the primary tools for direct communication. Imagine a future where phones and computers are unnecessary, as everything we need is integrated into our minds. Picture controlling objects with just your thoughts. Your car door opens as you approach. AI knows your destination and preferred music. And at home, you adjust lights, temperature, and humidity simply by thinking. Such actions would become as effortless as blinking. An even more intriguing concept is groupthink. Scientists speculate that people might be able to collaborate on problem solving through collective thought, rather than through spoken or typed communication. Elon Musk likens this form of communication to consensual teleconferencing, where thoughts are shared directly, allowing for unprecedented levels of collaborative problem solving. If I decided to communicate a concept to you, it would essentially be a consensual teleconference. You wouldn't have to say anything, unless you wanted to add some vintage to the conversation or something. But the conversation would be at the level of concepts, and that's hard to understand right now. Tim Urban asked Elon, the question that comes to mind for anyone hearing about mental communication for the first time. Does that mean anyone will be able to know what I'm thinking? The answer is no. People won't be able to read your mind unless you want them to. Just like if you don't want your mouth to speak, it doesn't speak. Imagine how much easier it would be to describe a dream or music stuck in your head, or a memory, if you could transfer it into someone else's head. Or as Elon said, I could think of a bouquet of flowers and visualize it clearly in my head, but you would need a lot of words to at least roughly describe it. Such technology could make a big difference in the work of creative people. Engineers and architects could create designs faster by simply exchanging ideas in their heads. Musicians could record music directly from their imagination without touching instruments. Emotions, too, could be communicated more accurately. Think back to the last time you said, "I'm sad," to someone. Didn't you feel that those two words were just the tip of the iceberg? Your state of mind is a symphony of feelings that cannot be captured in a single note. Emotions are the product of our limbic system. It's the oldest part of the brain, even in reptiles. It is rivaled by the neocortex, which is the cortex, which is responsible for thinking and planning. So while the cortex is much smarter than the limbic system, it mostly serves it. The cortex tries to keep the limbic system happy. A huge amount of brain processing power is spent on getting sex, not necessarily for reproduction, but just for the process itself. People get pleasure out of it. So there's an enormous amount of computational resources being spent by the cortex on this generally absurd process called sex. Neuroscientist Morin Cerf argues that neurointerfaces can reconcile these two parts of your brain. Imagine eating chocolate cake. As we eat, we feed data into our cognitive apparatus. This data gives us the enjoyment of the cake. That is, the enjoyment is not in the cake itself, but in our neural experience of eating it. Separating our sensory desire, the experience of eating cake, from the primary goal of survival, nutrition, will soon be within our grasp. The same principle could be applied to things like sex, drugs, alcohol, and other pleasures that get people into trouble. Have you ever imagined studying while you sleep? Since we spend about a third of our lives sleeping, the idea of optimizing this time for learning is intriguing. Scientists have made significant progress in this area with rats. They found that it's possible to accelerate the learning process by preparing the brain with methods like electrical stimulation or special molecules that affect calcium levels in cells. By tuning the brain to the right frequency before training, researchers observed that rats learn 2 to 3 times faster than usual. But there's another exciting frontier in accessing knowledge, directly tapping into information from the web. Tim Urban, in a conversation with computer scientist Ramez Nam, outlined 4 levels of this possibility. Level 1, I have a question, and the answer appears in my mind as if I just thought of it. Level 2, I have a question, and I immediately know the answer, as if I've always remembered it. Level 3, I instantly know what I want to know, and I can't tell whether the information is coming from my memory or the cloud. The cloud feels like an extension of my mind, providing information as needed. Level 4, I can not only learn facts but also deeply understand complex concepts. For instance, I could download an entire book and grasp it instantly, allowing me to discuss and quote it as if I had read it. Ramez Nam believes that all levels are possible, but the 4th level is the most technologically complex and therefore distant. It is difficult to predict the exact timing of the new era of communication. Experts differ in their opinions. For example, technopreneur Brian Johnson believes that in the next 15 to 20 years we will see the first wave of neuroprosthetics for healthy people. Ramez Nam talks about 50 years or more, and adds, I hope I'm wrong. I hope Elon corrects this curve. Musk himself is optimistic and believes that the first devices for people without disabilities may appear in 8 to 10 years. Musk is rushing to develop Neurointerface because he sees the key to a better future. Today, mankind risks keeping all eggs in one basket on Earth. If a catastrophe happens, we're gone. That's why Elon created SpaceX, to make spaceflight cheaper and more accessible. His goal is not to convince everyone to move to Mars, but to create the opportunity to do so. When the time comes, people will get interested. But there's a bigger problem. Mankind is creating artificial intelligence that could become smarter than we are. Thousands of experts see this as a huge threat. Why? Think about how we humans treat animals. If any of their body parts are valuable, we create entire industries that process and sell those body parts. Sometimes we even kill animals for sport. And that's because we have enormous power over them. Power that intelligence has given us. Many people think there's us and there's everyone else. What if the AI treats us the same way? And it has to be said, AI is evolving very quickly. Think of how a computer beat the best players in chess, Go, Dota, then learned how to move, mastered human language, and began to help make scientific discoveries. And all of this happened in less than 10 years. Over the last few years, I've realized that AI will definitely far surpass humans in intelligence. There's a certain risk that something bad will happen, something we won't be able to control. No one knows for sure what will happen when a super-intelligent AI emerges. Some think it will solve all our problems. Others fear we're playing with fire we don't understand. Elon sees it as only a matter of time before artificial superintelligence appears on Earth. And when it does, it's critical that we don't become everyone else to it. Your brain is like a computer. It has hardware, the neurons themselves, and software, the information stored in them. When you are angry or happy, you are not actually interacting with the physical parts of your brain, but with the information in them. Your emotions are like programs that run in your biological computer. Same with thinking and perception. The lines between the tiles look curved, but they are actually all straight. Segments of the same length appear different to you because of the arrows at the ends. And here you see a triangle that isn't really there. It's all a flow of information. Your eyes send sketches of reality to your brain, and it completes the rest, creating the full picture of the world you see in your head. Even when you're trying to remember the name of someone you've just met, you're not looking in the physical neurons, but in the information stored in them. It's like opening a file on a computer. It turns out your brain is not just a pound and a half of gray matter. It's a complex system where the hardware, neurons, and the software, information, work together to create your consciousness, emotions, and thoughts. And now imagine adding another layer to this system, the digital layer. It will allow you to connect directly to the internet, communicate with others mentally, and receive any information instantly. The digital layer won't just add a new part to your brain. It will change the very way you think. It could make us true cyborgs, connected to the digital world directly through thought. Most of your thinking runs in your cortex, but when you're hungry, you don't say, "My limbic system is hungry." You say, "I'm hungry." Similarly, Elon thinks when you're trying to find a solution to a problem and your AI finds the answer. You don't say, "My AI found the answer." You say, "I found the answer." Imagine that you have a new voice in your head, but it won't be someone else. It will be you. A new part of your thinking. It would be like having a superpower. The idea of symbiosis with AI is particularly challenging because it combines two heady concepts at once. The first is a neurocomputer interface with all the abilities we've discussed. And the second is a strong artificial intelligence. That's one that's smarter than we are. People today simply can't understand either of these ideas because we are guided by our life experiences and our imagination. And these concepts are simultaneously completely new to us. It's like trying to imagine a color you've never seen before. Musk is confident in his idea. He believes the key here is the speed of information transfer. The faster your brain can communicate with the AI, the more it will feel like a part of you rather than a separate device. The problem is that the communication bandwidth is extremely low, especially on the output. When you're outputting information on your phone, you're moving two fingers very slowly. It's insanely slow communication. If the bandwidth is too low, your integration with the AI will be very poor. Given the limitations of low bandwidth, everything becomes meaningless. The AI will just live on its own because we'll be too slow to communicate with it. The faster the communication, the more we can integrate. The slower the communication, the less. And the more separated we are, the more AI will be different. The more likely it is to spit on us. AI will be separate and smarter than us. How do we make sure their optimization functions don't harm humanity? If we achieve a close symbiosis, however, the AI won't be different. It will be related to you, just as you are related to your limbic system. We'll have a choice: either stand aside and become as useless as a pet, or merge with the AI. However, becoming a pet kitty is still a good outcome. If the team of Neuralink, Nikolelis, Kurzweil, and other scientists are right, in the not-so-distant future, billions of people will be able to interact directly with AI. They will be able to think with it, learn and work together. We will be able to understand it because it will become part of us. In such a world, we will be much less vulnerable. If everyone becomes Superman, it will be hard for one Superman to hurt the others. There would be a kind of balance of power. But there's a but. Time is critical. Musk emphasizes that we must learn to connect our brains to computers before super-intelligent AI emerges. Otherwise, we may not have time to merge with it and be left behind. That's why he founded Neuralink. Its long-term goal is to accelerate our path to a future where anyone who wants to augment themselves with AI will be able to afford it, and where there will be billions of individual AI-human symbiotes that will jointly make decisions about the future. Friends, thanks for watching. If you enjoyed the video, please give it a like and subscribe to the channel. Your support helps us move forward.